It's a time for more packages from China. Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. So with this video, we are going to take a close look at another product from Chuwi. We're going to combine this with some Windows gaming and Botacera for retro emulation. What can we do with this machine? How far can we push it? And what are we going to get with it? Because this thing comes with a Core i5 8th generation, and it is more powerful than most boxes I've reviewed here on the channel. But that's the question, is this thing worth the money? How is the build quality? That's what we're going to find out. Okay guys, so first of all, let's do a quick unboxing about this Chuwi box. So they're claiming this thing is portable, but also still powerful. Or better said, powerful yet small. The question is, like all fun and game, that this thing is small, but it's not really small, you know? Like Chuwi has these tiny boxes, the Hero box and of course the Lark box. Those things are small. But let's take a close look at this. So here we're going to get all of the paperwork, then we're going to get the product itself. And here you can see, compared with my hand, it's not super small. It's still a very compact PC. And here we're going to get ourselves all the stuff that we're going to need, like power supply, stuff like that. The power supply is nothing really fancy. It's just your typical power supply that you're going to get with boxes like these. And of course we're going to get this cable, simply because we can use a single 2.5-inch drive, including some extra screws that we're going to need. Alright, so let's take a close look at the box itself. It comes in this very nice plastic Chuwi bag. Okay, so the product itself weighs quite light. So it comes with the Core i5. We'll do like an overview of the specification later on. So the design itself is kind of interesting. So first of all, we're going to get more like the open case at the bottom part. So basically what you're going to see with this core box, that we can suck the fresh air from the bottom and we're going to push it out from the back. That's basically how it works, but later on with the teardown I will show you what I mean. The design itself is quite stylish, but there is no USB connections at the front. A little bit of a bummer in my opinion. And at the back we're going to get a microphone and an audio out. Ethernet, we're going to get HDMI display with 4 USB through though and input for the power supply. But here, let's talk about the specifications. Like I love to say, the wicked nerdy time. So this Chuwi box is, by the way, the 8th generation. I noticed they are selling like different generations, to take that one into consideration. This thing goes in 3.8 GHz turbo mode, comes with 16 GB DDR4 that runs on 2400 MHz, has a storage capacity of 256 GB, but you can extend it, and comes with an Iris Plus 655 GPU from Intel on board. Okay, so next up, let's sell our soul to Skynet, and when we have set this up, let's take a close look at some games in particular. Okay, so Windows have been set up, finally installed the games. So let's take a close look at some basic games like indie games, or some more high demanding games. Let's just see how far we can push the 655 GPU from Intel. Is the thing any good for gaming in Windows? Okay, so the first thing that we're going to play is Cuphead, a really cool indie game, but it is still quite demanding. So I'm noticing like the loading times, everything works very well, and I'm very pleased with the result. So let's do a quick gameplay and let's see how it reacts to the CPU, GPU, and how will the FPS be. So let's try the Street of Rage 4 briefly, just to see how this will work. Cuphead had a good performance, dipped here and there, but in general it was a very nice gameplay. Full 60 FPS most of the time when playing some bosses. How will it be with Street of Rage? Okay, so when we're going to try some Street Fighter 5 or V, how do you want to call it, I'm noticing like the game runs really slow. And this is like pushing the 635 GPU on board like to the limit. So when it comes to this basically GPU, it's fun for two-dimensional game. When you're going to get in three-dimensional, it's not doing very well when it comes to the performance. Alright, so let's talk about Botacera, because that's what we're going to use, and the reason why I think Botacera is just a great way to play when it comes to retro gaming, because you don't need the Windows mumbo jumbo. It's just like a plug and play solution that you can make. You can use yourself an SSD, you can use yourself different ways. I think SSD is one of the most expensive but still like a very great way to go, because it's a very stable piece of technology. Of course you can use a platter disk, those things are pretty damn awesome, but they're way cheaper. And yeah, they will consume a little bit more power depending how you want to assemble this, so take consideration sometimes in using an external enclosure, it can give some problems. Then we're going to get ourselves the thumb drive. The thumb drive, I don't like those options most of the time because, like, don't get me wrong, they are like super easy, plug and play, but these tiny ones get quite hot, so I recommend like getting a big one that has some cooling or such kind of. Okay, and then we're going to get the 3.5-inch platter disc, but yeah, that's a different story, and the reason why, because not all of the devices will have the option to use this, so if you want to use this, you need to use an external enclosure, but it's going to get more of a cable nightmare. But also nowadays we're going to get like very cool enclosure for the 2.5-inch, so you can use basically like enclosures and use the thing through the USB. I mostly do this because it's super easy plug and play, but internally we're going to get a little bit more speeds. Then we're going to get these awesome kits that they're selling. So basically what they're selling, like having a hard drive enclosure, an hard drive, and then it comes complete with controllers. Sometimes like the fake wireless controllers, they are not the best, but yeah, they are pretty damn awesome. So the kits come even with a manual, so explaining you how to add games to the hard drive. So it's an all-in-one fun package. But that's one of the options you can basically go through. And yeah, comes with controllers, so you don't need to search for them. You can also get yourself like an Xbox 360 controller or something else. There are many ways to play with the Botacera image. The enclosures are just okay quality, the plastic cheap ones. So that's basically what they are doing over there. Okay, so what is Botacera? So Botacera is a piece of software that is based on Linux, and we can play a lot of video games with. They are like pre-installed with emulators, and they're still updating this piece of software. If you have an x86 or an x64 PC, you can just plug in this hard disk or hard drive that you made and play some games. Depending on how much power you have, depends on what we can play. And that's what we're going to test out today. We're going to get this i5 8th generation and yeah, just see how far we can push this beast. Can we play a lot of old school games, or can we also play some modern games? That's what we're going to find out, because this thing supports up to PlayStation 3. Yeah, I know, it's pretty damn wicked. The first test is Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 1, 2 and 3 are quite demanding when it comes to MAME. This game runs pretty damn awesome, and I must say, like, it is not a problem with PCs, especially when you're having an i5 inside. So when it comes to cheap boxes and MAME, there we're going to get some limitations with Tech and Tag, but this i5 has no problem whatsoever running this game. Pandora's Boxes, Raspberry Pi 4, there are many ways to play, but Killer Instinct is one of those games that will not run on many of these devices. I know, like with the Raspberry Pi you can overclock it, a lot of mumbo jumbo for getting this thing to work, but with a PC like this it works without a hassle. So N64 will always be a mixed bag, and the reason is because of the emulator and the complexity about it. But with more power we can play games like Cruis'n USA that will stutter on every single board PC I've tested. And with a mini PC like this we can finally play Cruis'n USA and many other ones. And a great example is of course F-Zero X, one of my favorite games I still play on my original N64, and it runs flawlessly with this i5. So that's pretty damn awesome if you ask me. So also the really demanding games will have no problem with N64 in combination with an i5 8th generation. So when it comes to the Larkbox and other devices that are basically low power CPUs, like they will run a lot of old stuff, but when it comes to GameCube, there we're going to get a lot of issues. But this racing game is quite a nice benchmark for this, and yep, the i5 have no problem running GameCube. The Sega Saturn isn't really demanding emulator. The Yabatsu Zero is amazing, only you need to have a lot of power to run games. And yeah, this game in particular, the three-dimensional games, has a lot of problems, like again, like single board PCs or Android boxes, you name it. But with this i5, we can play this game without any problems. So Wipeout is not the most demanding game, but it is a quite demanding game between like Tekken and God of War, and it runs flawlessly, so I will not even be afraid to scale it up a little bit. But God of War, for example, will run just fine on i5 8th generation CPUs. So PlayStation 2 is another emulator that is super demanding, and I must say that it also runs very good on this machine. I noticed like when you're having these cheap boxes, it always have like pushes to do the limit, but this time finally we can play some PlayStation 2 on this machine. So despite some minor glitches and errors, I just wanted to show you that the more demanding games will run just fine when it comes to the FPS. So when it comes to this CPU, I think it's pretty damn awesome to see that we can play PlayStation 2, but take consideration Wii U, PlayStation 3 is just out of the question. We need some more juice for that. Alright, so let's take a close look at the inside. What are we going to get? So what I find quite interesting is this metal plate, because this metal plate basically does anything. But how do I mean doesn't do anything? It's quite simple. This is only giving the device some weight. Yeah, that is quite stupid. So this is just a metal plate with Chuwi on it and a sticker of i5. And this gives the weight. There's nothing for cooling whatsoever. So the only thing for opening it up, you need to have the bottom plate. And this thing is fully made of plastic. Comes with 2 rubber feet for putting this thing on place. So it's kind of weird construction if you ask me. I think like this thing was already quite weight, and if they didn't even attach this metal plate, it's going to be even more of a plastic fantastic. Okay, so let's turn this thing around, and here you can see like it has the bracket for the other hard drive. So that's the reason why we got an extra cable. But let's take a close look in the inside. I think it's a quite interesting concept that they made over here. So this thing is made of plastic, almost fully made of plastic. So when it's sent on your disk like that, it sucks in the air or the fresh air and push it through the cooling element. Here you can see like the heat pipes go to there. So the construction is not bad at all. We're going to get a replaceable SSD if you want to, or an M2 disk. But so far I can see there is no way of upgrading the RAM whatsoever. So you're stuck with a 16 GB. That is something I just wanted to see. There are 2 connections for hard drive, by the way. Okay. So that concludes this Chuwi box review. So when it comes to Windows gaming, it's absolutely no-go in my opinion, yeah, for indie games. But when you were looking into the Botacera Retro Gaming, so there this box has a lot to offer. Up to PlayStation 2 is possible to play, but if you want to go further and just want to play more demanding stuff, you just need to have more power when it comes to the CPU. So the Chuwi box, it's quite a portable box, but it's still kind of beefy. Well, thank you for watching, consider subscribing, hit the little bell, become the Wicked family, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And let's go.